Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Tonight I want to tell you a story, one that still makes the hairs on my arms stand on end whenever I think about it. It's not a tale of jump scares or masked killers, but of something far more insidious. A slow creep into the mind, a whisper of dread that once heard can never truly be silenced. My name is Alistair, and a few years ago, I inherited a place I barely knew existed. Blackwood Manor. It wasn't some grand, sprawling estate, but a rather imposing, if slightly crumbling, country house nestled deep in the Scottish Highlands. My great-aunt Ilara, a woman I'd met perhaps twice in my life, had passed away, and as the last remaining relative, the responsibility, or perhaps the burden, fell to me. I remember the drive there vividly. The narrow, winding roads, shrouded in a perpetual mist that seemed to cling to the ancient trees like a shroud. The village of Auchenard, a collection of stone cottages huddled together against the elements, felt less like a community and more like a secret. And then, Blackwood Manor itself. A gaunt, gray structure that seemed to sigh under the weight of centuries, its windows like vacant eyes staring out over the desolate moorland. I told myself it was just old, just isolated. I was wrong. My first few weeks at Blackwood were uneventful, in the most unsettling way possible. The silence was the first thing that struck me. Not the comforting quiet of a peaceful home, but a heavy, watchful silence. It felt like the house was holding its breath. I spent my days trying to sort through my aunt's belongings, an endless task of dusty heirlooms and forgotten letters. But it was the nights that began to truly gnaw at me. It started with sounds, faint whispers, just at the edge of hearing, like dry leaves skittering across a stone floor, even when there was no breeze. I'd freeze, listen intently, and then nothing. Just the rain against the window panes and the occasional groan of the old house settling. I rationalized it, of course. Old house, old pipes, active imagination. Then came the dreams. Repetitive, disquieting dreams. Always the same scenario. I was standing in a long, dark hallway within the manor, a hallway I hadn't yet explored. And at the far end, a door. I could never reach it, never open it. But I could feel something behind it, something waiting. I'd wake up in a cold sweat. The image of that door burned into my mind. And a subtle scent, something like damp earth and old roses, a fragrance that wasn't present in the room when I drifted off to sleep. One evening, I was reading in the study, a crackling fire, my only companion. I looked up, drawn by some unseen prompt, and for a fleeting second, I saw it. A shadow. Not my own, not the firelight playing tricks. It was too tall, too slender, and it moved across the far wall, just beyond the reach of the firelight, as if someone had walked past an open doorway. But there was no doorway there, only a solid wall. I told myself it was fatigue, that the isolation was getting to me. I even considered leaving, but something held me there. A morbid curiosity, perhaps. Or perhaps something else entirely. The house felt aware. The whispers grew bolder. They weren't just background noise anymore. Sometimes I'd be in the kitchen making tea and hear my name called clear as day from another room. Alistair. Soft, feminine, and utterly chilling. When I'd go to investigate, of course, there would be no one. I started leaving doors open, just a crack, convincing myself that seeing an empty room would dispel the fear. It didn't. Instead, I'd see them swing shut, slowly, silently, even when there was no draft. And sometimes I'd catch a glimpse of movement in the reflection of a polished surface, a fleeting pale face in the mirror as I walked past, gone before I could properly focus. One night, the dream returned, but this time, it was different. I was in that same hallway, but the door at the end was ajar, a sliver of darkness, and from within, a faint melody. A lullaby, perhaps, old, mournful, and sung in a language I didn't understand. yet it filled me with a primal dread. I woke up, drenched, heart hammering against my ribs, and the scent, the damp earth and old roses. It was overwhelming this time. It filled my bedroom. I stumbled out of bed, fumbling for the light switch, my breath catching in my throat. As the lamp flickered on, I saw it. On the antique dresser where I always kept my watch was a single withered rose, and beneath it, a small, ornate silver locket. It wasn't mine. It wasn't my aunt's. I had never seen it before. With trembling fingers, I opened the locket. Inside were two faded photographs. On one side, a stern-looking man from a bygone era. On the other, a young woman. Her eyes, though faded by time, held a profound sadness. And behind her, unmistakable, was the doorway from my dreams. The same carved wood, the same ornate brass handle. I knew then. This wasn't just my imagination. Blackwood Manor wasn't just old, it was inhabited, and it was calling to me. I found the hallway from my dreams the next day, buried behind a forgotten tapestry on the second floor. It was exactly as I had seen it. And at the end, the door. The same door. It was locked, of course, but the faint smell of earth and roses was strongest there. I spent days trying to find a key, tearing the house apart. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. The shadows danced with malevolent glee. I felt watched, constantly, like an insect trapped under a magnifying glass. Finally, in a dusty old journal of my great-aunt Ilara's, tucked away in a hidden compartment, I found an entry. It was dated decades ago. It spoke of a previous owner, a woman named Isabel, who had died tragically within the manor. She'd been locked away in her room after a prolonged illness, a descent into madness, they said. Her grief, her longing for her lost love, and her despair had become intertwined with the very fabric of Blackwood. The journal mentioned a secret, a way to appease her, a ritual. It spoke of a key not made of metal, but of understanding, of listening. And then it hit me. The lullaby, the dreams, the whispers. They weren't just sounds. They were messages. I went back to that hallway. The door at the end was no longer locked. It was ajar, just as in my dream. And from within, the scent of earth and roses was overpowering. I stood there, rooted to the spot, paralyzed by fear and a strange, compelling curiosity. I knew I shouldn't, but I couldn't resist. I pushed the door open. The room was small, a nursery, long abandoned. A single rickety cradle stood in the center, draped in cobwebs. And on the floor, scattered among dust and decaying toys, were more withered roses. But it wasn't the room that truly broke me. It was what I felt. A profound, suffocating sadness. A longing so deep it resonated in my very bones. And a presence. Isabel. She wasn't an entity haunting the house. She was the house. Her despair had infused every stone, every beam, every whisper. I backed out slowly, carefully, my mind reeling. I tried to leave Blackwood Manor after that. I packed my bags, got in my car, and drove away. Or at least I thought I did. You see, the dreams never stopped. The whispers still call my name. Alistair. Sometimes, in the dead of night, I wake up and find myself standing in that hallway again, the door ajar, the scent of old roses in the air. I tried to explain it away, to move on. But the more I tried to escape, the more Blackwood Manor pulled me back. I keep finding myself here. I'll drive for hours, clear of the moors, only to blink and find the gray, gaunt silhouette of the manor on the horizon once more. The truth is, I never left. Not really. Blackwood Manor doesn't want people to just live in it. It wants people to become it, to feel its sadness, its loneliness, to carry its echoes. And now, I understand the lullaby. I understand the longing. I feel it too. I feel the rain against the ancient stones. I hear the wind sighing through the vacant rooms. I am the house, and just like Isabel before me, and perhaps others before her, I am waiting. Waiting for the next Alistair to arrive, to inherit, to listen, and to join the echoes. Good night. Or perhaps, good morning. The cycle continues.